Hello. 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 Hello, my name is Oscar and Fire. And welcome to another rambly ranty video? I don't know. It's not really ranty, it's just rambly. It's definitely going to be a rambly video. Hopefully, though, I can clock in under 20 minutes this time. I don't know. We all know how I get when I start talking. We all know how I get when I start talking. But I just want to talk a little bit about something, not things generally, but something that interests me. And wow, I just totally lost my train of thought. I'm not even a minute in. I lost my train of thought. Actually, might be slightly over a minute. Future me, check that out. But I wanted to talk about something that interests me. Now, you all have for years, if you've been paying any attention, you know that this thing interests me because because it comes up occasionally. And recently on the channel, given that it's the only activity that's been on the channel really for the past few months, you understand my interest, and that interest, of course, is music. I guess it's fitting to give a little bit of my history with music, namely that I don't really have one. Like, not personally, like I never learned music theory in school. I never learned how to play an instrument, except for the recorder. There's a lot of things that I never really got to, there's a lot of things I didn't learn with music because it was kind of hard. I guess growing up, it was kind of hard to express an interest in music, I guess is the best way to put it. Because my personal tastes really did not line up with most people's. Especially when I was a little kid, my general preference for music actually really just fell into the Star Wars soundtracks and a few other odds and ends, things like the main leitmotif of Last of the Mohicans and the soundtrack to the movie Gettysburg, stuff like that. I like movie soundtracks, frankly. So in broader strokes, one could say, I guess, my musical interests trended towards classical. But it was always hard to explain to people because it's not like I went out and sought out listening to Beethoven or Bach or, going a bit later, maybe, Tchaikovsky or something. Granted, I like pieces they had written, of course, but it's not really something I've ever sought out. I never sought out the various periods of older music with, in the 18th and 19th centuries, even though that was generally my preference in music. By the way, okay, there we go. By the way, you'll have to pardon my voice if it kind of kicks out occasionally. It's, I don't know why, I've been I've been slightly congested for the past couple of days. I don't know what it is. And it's literally just congestion. No idea where it's coming from or why it's happening. Can have a few guesses. Not going to do that, though. Not here, anyway. But yeah, so when I was a kid, though, I had a hard time defining my taste in music. In no small part because there was also the fact that, there's, of course, all those genres. You got country, pop, hip-hop, etc. And, I would always like drips and drabs of pieces of music, except for hip-hop. I love little drips and drabs of music here and there in various genres, but I never liked any particular genre. People ask me, "What's your favorite band? What is your favorite band?" It's like, I don't have a favorite band. People would ask me, what do I listen to? And it's like, because I just listen to whatever's playing or whatever, whatever was playing at the time. It doesn't matter if it was music on the radio or, a music file saved the computer. And then it's funny because, well, it's not really much of a surprise that I really enjoy game music. There's several playlists on this channel dedicated to music from some of my favorite video games. In fact, I never went as far with those playlists as I wanted to, in no small part because I never knew how to generate interest in the idea of having a favorite music list. It was very frustrating, I guess. Not frustrating, but it was difficult because I must admit I'm not the most social media savvy individual on the planet, obviously. And I don't generally because I don't quite like social media. I don't quite like the social media aspects of YouTube. I like the video making aspects of YouTube, but I don't like much beyond that. But it was kind of in the early to mid 2000s where I guess I kind of had a sort of a musical awakening, where I kind of started to kind of discover the kind of music I liked. And of course, that music I found a lot of in video games. And I think there were 3 games in particular that really kind of made me realize that, that video game music wasn't just like goofy, lighthearted, and fun, like, say, the soundtrack from Banjo-Kazooie or other games like Super Smash Brothers or Rogue Squadron. But that music in games could have their own life, their own character, that they could have an impact on you emotionally. They didn't just have to be, little ambient soundtracks that, I don't know, is this ambience? I don't know. No, they didn't have to be little ambient soundtracks in the background of, some game world or whatever, but that they could be something different or something unique, something that could immerse you. And those 3 games, in order that I played them, were The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, Golden Sun, the duology, not just the first or the second, but both games, and Fire Emblem 7, the first game that was released in the United States. These 3 games had a profound impact on a lot of aspects of how I perceive video games. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker was, like, for example, was the first Zelda game that I played that I took seriously. Because before that I had played Oracle of Ages, but I never really got around to finishing it because I wasn't very good at the puzzles, and it kind of throwing me. But Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, gosh, that game is so much fun. I love that. I haven't played the game in like 15 years, but I love that game to bits. It's so good. For lack of a better word, it's so good. Because there's a lot of aspects. It's not just the music, of course. It was also like these games taught me that video games could have stories that had meaning. And, they taught me that video games could create worlds that had depth and character to them. They taught me that video games can have real characters in them, that it could have like real fleshed out individuals portrayed in them. But they also taught me that music is something that video games can do differently and uniquely, and just as well as any other genre music, just for general consumption or movie soundtracks or whatever. And I think that's pretty awesome. I think it's pretty awesome, and it started basically ever since then, my kind of love affair with video game soundtracks. Now, it hasn't gotten any better explaining my taste in music, because when people ask me that, it's like, I don't like video game soundtracks. Doesn't really sound like a good answer, right? It sounds vaguely absurd, in fact. But in a lot of ways, music soundtracks in video games have defined like what I like in music. I would say that in no small part due to the existence of video game soundtracks is part of the reason I would discover, like different alternative sorts of music. I've discovered over the years that I kind of like alternative forms of metal, things like symphonic metal and so forth. I like new age music. I like, and of course there's like epic music, like Two Steps from Hell. You got E.S. Posthumous. I got all sorts of music like that, and it's so hard to explain because it's very personal to me. The way I love music is very personal to me. It's not quite something I can share with everybody, right? It's not something that's just easily transmitted through words, because it's mostly feeling. But at the same time, I would love to share like my love of music. And that's part of the reason I started making first those Final Fantasy XI music videos, and now these Final Fantasy XIV ones. I know I kind of petered out over the past couple of weeks in making them, and kind of dreading trying to do Penitus for the Praetorium. I actually might skip that particular batch and do other themes, just because there's so much good music in Shadowbringers. But I'm really looking forward, I'm looking forward to getting back into that habit, because Game music is awesome. Game soundtracks are awesome. There's so many games I've never played, and there's some games that I've never played, and I adore the soundtracks to them. Every time I hear a theme from, say, the Ace Combat series, like the Liberation of Grace Maria or Zero, like those are absolutely phenomenal pieces of music. I mean, who would think that an aerial combat game could use flamenco and it fits and it just works perfectly? Like how does that happen? How do you do that? That's genius. It's brilliant. I guess I don't really know what the point of this video is. I just wanted to talk about this for a bit because it's not underrated, I guess. Not underrated aspect of games. Obviously, if you just look up video game, like a soundtrack from a video game that you like on YouTube, you'll discover there's like a whole, there's a whole subculture on the internet that, absolutely adores these things. Some adore them so far as to create remixes, like Overclocked Remix, of course, that I use music from in the outros for the videos I've done over the years. Stuff like that. Don't die me. Stuff like that, though. There's all sorts of music out there that I think lots of people just don't realize is there. They don't realize is not just there, but it's good and is worth listening to. People get caught up in traditional musical genres so much that they don't even realize that there's all this music, whether it's in movies or video games or television shows, or just from alternative artists, that is right there for the listening and to be appreciated. It's funny because it makes you think about when I was growing up how some people, in fact, did not, some people I knew, not necessarily friends, but people I knew that were in school with me, didn't really appreciate genres outside of the ones they liked. And I always thought that was so shallow and dumb. Because like I said, I was always the sort of person who, I could sometimes hear, a pop song. God damn you, NSYNC. I could listen to a pop song, though, and I'd not appreciate it, but it would get stuck in my head because I my brain is like, okay, this is an enjoyable beat. Oh God, it's stuck. Oh no, stop, please help. And that would happen, or country tunes or country pop or whatever. Like I said, no hip hop. I don't like hip hop. I like older hip hop, but I don't like gangster rap. I don't like hip hop kind of before a transition into gangster rap. Kind of get back in the past though. The songs have more meaning and it hits me a little bit better, but that's the only genre really where I have trouble kind of really connecting with any aspect of it. But outside of that though, it just amuses me because there's so many people who they're like, oh, but that's music from video games. How could that be good? Or, that's music produced by a full orchestra. That's not going to be interesting or exciting or fun. And I always find it vaguely amusing in the shallowness of that. And the last place you actually find that kind of shallowness is in people who actually are musicians. People who are musicians usually know how to appreciate all musical genres. They know how to appreciate all sorts of musical composition and all sorts of music that goes outside of their realm, outside of their specific realm of musical writing or musical playing, And I don't know, there's a universality to music that I kind of hope that as the years go on, more and more people come to appreciate. And with my channel and with silly little Final Fantasy XIV music videos, I guess, I hope to do my part to achieve that as well. Anyway, that's all. Stop dying me. Anyway, this is the result of congestion, so I don't know what's doing it. But yeah. So I want to thank you all for watching this little video on one of my dearest interests, I guess is the best way to put it. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and a comment down below. Be sure to check the channel playlist. Thought about it. Got it. Be sure to check the channel playlist to just see like the handful of musical themed playlists that I have going on this channel. If you want any suggestions or recommendations for me, or if you have any suggestions or recommendations for me, I'd be more than happy to have those conversations. Obviously, you can only do it in the comments or on Twitter. Twitter's valid too. And I will catch you next time. As I think I might try to do a bit of a special project. Might be a couple of special things happening this week. You'll see what I mean. Until next time, everybody.